T-shirts.
Okay, good. Okay. Can we start?
Yeah.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Sain and Irina. Selamat sore semuanya yang sudah hadir di panel diskusi kita sore hari ini. Saya bersama Irina Safu Kristia dan Sain Brimer. Pada sore hari ini kita akan bicara soal women, power, and changes. Ya, okay. Good afternoon, Irina. How are you?
Good afternoon, selamat sore semuanya. I'm very good. Terima kasih atas kesempatan ini.
You look good.
Thank you,
Yeah,
you too. I'm super happy to meet with you, both.
Okay. And then Sain Brimer here. Hello, Sain. Good afternoon.
Hi.
How are you?
Selamat sore. I'm good too. Good to see you both. Happy to be on this panel discussion.
Okay, you look great. Okay,
I wear your T-shirts.
Yeah, so cool. Okay, so our session today is actually about women, power, and social changes. So basically, we are going to talk about how women and the power of women can make social changes. And I know that both of you and also me myself involved in such a an activism with women. Yeah, Irina works on research about the voice of women in especially Balinese women. Yeah, and she makes a grounded theory on women with social voice, yeah, and social change in Bali. And Sin Brimer here as a journalist, she's working on the voice of women as well, and on the topic of decolonialization. So the three of us actually are keen on talking about the voice of women, especially in the context of Balinese women, because we believe that there are still some voices of women are not heard or cannot be heard or silenced. Okay, so now we are going to talk about what is the role of our role actually, yeah, in making the changes in the perspective of women in our field, like Irina in maybe in educational field that makes a research on young Balinese women about their future, yeah, about their dreams and their hopes and their identity. And Sain, for example, works on a lot of women activists and women leaders in Bali. And I myself also work with women in the context of art and culture, and also in education, and of course in community, like in Comunitas Mahima. Okay, so now let's go. Are you ready? Okay. So yeah, Irina, can you tell me a little bit about your perspective on this theme in general, and also with Sain, your perspective on women power and social changes that we are talking about now? Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I will start a bit, and maybe the discussion will flow later. So I think that the perspective I want to bring through my research is especially on these voices of the young women, because in the last 30 years, there have been only 2 large anthropological studies that put women's lives and desires at their core. So from the start, there is not so much anthropological research on the women. So in the academia, if you read, you cannot read about their voices, their lives. And through my research in Bali, I looked and identified like what are the various definitions of female identity and what are the bigger institutions and structures that influence this. For example, the Balinese cultural system, with this government of emotional management and that dictates to keep a light face and light heart among families, friends, and even strangers for women. And also I look at the national discourses about what womanhood and motherhood means. And here I build on Julia Suryakusuma, feminist activist and writer, term called state Iboism, and where she somehow hints to the role of the family, of the women, to keep one happy family. And she parallels this with the nation building discourse. So she said, like, the hundreds of islands which became the united and diverse nation of Indonesia should be one happy family. This should start with each family, where women must preserve the happiness and the harmony of this. And then I also look at the global ideas of definitions of women and how do they get power, and what I've seen that travels through social media, international education and careers. And what I've seen, one example of success or happiness standard is set by K-pop culture and these ideas of love yourself, speak yourself, campaigns of the BTS Korean boy band. And many of the women that I've met, they have this idea of successful life, which is related to loving themselves, speak up, being independent through career, jobs, and so on, and hard work. And they also want to do it alone and to be independent, mandiri sendiri, they say. And this independence starts with working hard and also be successful before marriage. And here it's the other structural systems that influence the definition of a woman, like the national campaigns in Indonesia, where they say you have to be success dulu before marriage. And so a lot of women manage their time, are very flexible. They learn this through childhood in Bali, also to balance their time between school, crafting offers, household chores, and they pick up these skills and they use them in balancing all their activities in order to become successful before marriage. And also another definition of being successful in Bali is being a mother and being married, and also sometimes having kids, being a mother, but having a son to pass on the family ancestral inheritance. And then the second thing, like another perspective that I want to look at and that I'm looking at, is that being a good Balinese woman and a strong Balinese woman is based on a lot of emotion work, and how these women have to manage their own emotions, but also the emotions of everyone around them, family, neighbors. And in order to keep this family happy and to keep the whole community happy, they have to smile all the time. And it's a full-time job, as they say, like a 100% emotionally on. They have to embrace, protect, listen to, mediate, marangkul, mengayomi, mengadili, melayani. Yeah, all the people around them, they have to be in service. And this starts when they are kids, but also especially after they marry, because of all these larger social networks, activities like Menyamu Braille and Gotong Royong, where they also have to take care of everyone's emotions. And yes, I look at how they use this way of being silent. They see that the way they can manage these emotions is to stay calm, diam, and sabar, and patient. And this might look submissive to a Western person at the beginning. You might seem like, where is the power in this? Always smiling, but actually I found out during my research, and this is a new perspective that I want to bring, is that these women, apart from having all the range of emotions that we all have, and which was negated in the previous anthropological work, they have a lot of power in this soft power of staying calm and of using these restrictions, so to say, in gaining this power, in trying to get what they want, in following their dreams. So being silent is not pasrah, being diam is not surrender, but actually a tool that they use, their ability to use their emotions and to manage their emotion. It's like a success key to gain their power. So this would be like in a nutshell. We can. I'm really.
I know. Okay. Yeah, I thank you, Irina, for the broad description about especially Balinese women. Yeah, it sounds like me. I'm hearing myself being described in in your description, and so true because what is it? In my stories, in my poems, I have written about the voice that I want to what is it? That I want the public to know about my vision about how it should be. Yeah. And it's very true that in some occasion, not in some occasion, almost in all occasion, to be honest, that we are showing what is it, the passions, the smiles, the endurance, and then the strength, because otherwise people will say that, oh, you're what's it, you're not ready. Yeah, or you are not emotionally okay, or being judged. Yeah, so all the time we need to be what is it, happy, smile, elegant, strong, and also what is it, at the same time independent financially, because you have to cover all the costs. I mean, you have to manage all the costs, and also with the pressure also from the social, we need to be very what is it, careful with the words we say, gitu ya. So that we do not hurt the society, because it's like what Irina said, we need to keep all emotional state in a stable condition, otherwise it is ruined. And that's how hard it is to be a Balinese woman in particular. But then this is so what is it, so true also, that maybe Balinese woman is the strongest human being. I mean, to keep all within herself, and sometimes being silent. And this movement with Mahima, March is actually giving more portion to women to speak up about what they undergo. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry sometimes. It's okay to be not okay. It's okay to be not okay, because you are human. So this is the path, or this is the channel that you can have in order that you can become normal. Yeah, you need to see other people's life as well, and then to see that life is not only about what's your own problem that you keep, but there are many voices that we can also hear. And literature, art, and culture helps Balinese woman also to heal herself, actually. Yeah. Okay. So we are going to ask Saint Brimer also in the context of this theme, in general. Maybe you can start, and then we can have our discussion. So Irina can ask me, or Saint can ask me. We can do like interaction in a more flowing way. So okay, Saint.
Yeah, thank
What do
you.
you say? Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
already so interesting to listen to both of your stories, and there's so much in it already to unpack for me. Yeah, I'm working on a topic of inclusion and decoloniality, very much in media. And I interviewed Balinese women last year in a series that I did. I was actually really curious to hear their side of the story, as I really came to Bali with a Western view as a Dutch woman, from a white woman from Europe, seeing so many things in the island that I perceived as a tourist, of course. And at some point, I was just curious about the position of women, and I wanted to hear from themselves. And of course, I interviewed you as one of the first ones, Sonia. So my work is really also from a Western perspective, coming to Bali and observing it from that angle. I think what is really interesting is that when I hear you both talk about Balinese women, there is definitely, from a Western point of view, you could easily think, oh, I feel so sorry for them and we have to rescue them, we have to help them. It's kind of the old-fashioned way how white people, Western people look at other cultures that are not white, that are outside of the West. Let's fly in here, let's start projects and let's rescue these women. And from a decolonial perspective, that's not the way to go. So from a decolonial perspective, it's very interesting also to really listen to the stories of all the women, all the individual experiences, and also see where the strength lies and maybe turn it around, not just not thinking like how we can rescue them, but what can we learn from them. And I think that is really interesting in the position of Balinese women. Also, I recognize from one of the interviews I did last year what Irina was saying about that certain softness or certain vulnerability is often seen through a Western lens as weak, whereas the women themselves see it as small and strategic movements to make change. And this is their way. And not only their way, they look actually very intelligently at the system they're living in, and look for actually the cracks in the system to make the cracks a little bit bigger, and then see how they can create space for themselves. That's how I see it. And that's actually interesting, because I think I mean, I don't want to generalize too much, but in white Western cultures, we sometimes as women have the feeling that we need to be the same as men, and that we actually want to copy what men are doing, but then as women. So we want the same power as men. But from a decolonial perspective, you look at the strength of women, you should actually not just look at taking over the position of the man, or not taking over, but getting at the same level in position of men, but you should look at it from a holistic view. So also change the way women do things and not copy the often violent patriarchal ways that we know in our society. So I think that is, from a decolonial inclusive perspective, that's for me really interesting.
Okay, thank you, Sain. So we, to the three of us, really have, our own perspective in seeing things, especially in women power and social changes. And Sain has completed from the perspective of decolonialization. So I would like to ask more about how do you see right now, whether or not women, but in particular Balinese women, has made progress to make their voices heard. How do you see this? Maybe from Irina first and then Sain, and I will be speaking also. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so I think I will build on what Sana had mentioned earlier. Like this, from my perspective, from the Western feminist that I was taught into, there are some ideas of what is better or what is progress, but I think that this might not be appropriate for how Balinese women want to be heard. So, and then I also don't find myself in a position where I can see it fair to look in a progressive way of how women in Bali express themselves. So I think this question would rather go to you, Sonia, because you are a Balinese woman, and it would be totally unfair from my side to look at this, because from what I've seen, there are historical and political and cultural and economic reasons for which the women that I have met voice their choices in the way they do, and sometimes they don't voice their choices, or they don't express themselves. And one of an example, you mentioned the money and how much like the women being responsible for finding the money for the ceremonies and for handcrafting the offerings, and then all the judgment from the society, which I am not afraid of as a Western woman, you know. So all these cultural, political, and economic factors do not allow me to be in a position where I can say, yes, the Balinese women have progressed or not. Because I would not look at it in a progressive, in an evolutionary way. I think there are stages. Like, I would look like what would be better way to respond to these realities, and we should not over culturalize and say that this is a Balinese problem, or this is the Balinese women are the victims of their culture, religion, nation, and now they are fighting back and so on. I mean, in this dichotomy of victim and the rebel. But rather to accept that this is also that they are not a monolithic group, and each woman has her own story, her own voice, her own way of trying to make sense of this. And I would not oppose them to like what progress means in Western world, you know, because there it's also a lot of women do not have voice. The patriarchy is the same, and yeah, I think it's just a very specific context. And yeah, I think I cannot answer to this question. I think it's not fair to answer it. So I would pass it back to you.
Okay, what about you, Sain? Thank you, Irina. Yeah, do you have a perspective on it?
Well, I think it's maybe, Sonja, you should go first now, because I feel the same as Irina. For me, it's also, my work is quite broad, and not the aspect of Balinese women is quite small. I can just talk from my own experience of what I see you doing with Comunitas Mahima, which I think is really inspirational for everyone, not just Balinese women, but how you create a community and how you really shine a light and highlight also the voices of the women. I think that's really important work. So I think it's from a decolonial perspective, praxis is also very, you know, taking action. It's not just enough to be aware of something. We can agree with each other to say like, oh yeah, you know, there's a problem here, and the women should have a stronger voice. But if nothing really happens, if we just all agree and have this discussion, and after an hour it's finished and we all agree on it, but nothing really changes, that is different. But I think what I see happening in Bali is that there's really a lot of action being taken also, and yeah, that's what I observe. But from the Balinese point of view, it's you, Sonja, who needs to clarify for us.
Okay, thank you. I think, yeah, from my point of view, talking about my own position as Balinese woman, as educator, as community leader, as a writer myself, and a lot more roles that attached to my identity. What's it? Growing the voice from your mind is very important to be to be shared to other people. Yeah, and I think community is one of the ways to make that mind grows, and that voice in the mind grows as well. As they as the Balinese woman maybe are familiar with routine, like the culture becomes part of their routine, and they must also think that they can make a voice out of it. Yeah, they can they can represent their voice to speak up their mind. and community. In this context, my community, Mahima, gives the space, at least, yeah, gives the space for the young Balinese woman or young Balinese rider, woman rider, to share the story, yeah. And of course, inside the story, inside the poem, inside the scripts that they produce, maybe they have their voice there, and that is how we can always inspire the society to hear our stories, to hear our voice, and the society can grow also in the sense that they are they are they think that our voice is important to be heard as well, in the context of art and culture. Because sometimes if we directly say our voice, it sounds like criticism rather than rather than reality. And sometimes the society is very resistant about criticism, and they seem like they are not ready to hear the criticism. But when it is wrapped in a form of art and culture, and in the form of fiction, poetry, or drama, they can hear more about our voice. And I also teach in creative writing courses, yeah. And also I teach poetry and drama, and I'm make sure that my students know why do they need to learn that, yeah. Why do they need to learn creative writing? Say, for example, why do we need to write poetry, for example, they ask me. And I need to tell them that you are not only born to be the passive participant of this world, but you are the active participant of this world, and you have the same chance, you have the same right to speak to speak up your mind, just the same like man. And for me, education and art comes in a balanced way to grow the society, in this context the women, and grow their mind, grow their emotional state, and their and help them shape their vision. Because sometimes they don't know where to go. They just they are given examples of how society accept the normality, like it has been shaped for years. But then if you are involving in a community where criticism and a real voice of the identity is being is being spoken out, I think at least there will be another vision about what normality means, and the criticism about what normal and what is not normal. And of course it is hard, yeah, to to be still normal as a part of society, but also not normal in the sense that you are artist, you need to be original, and you need to be creative in your own way. So that's the duality in myself that I keep growing within, because in society I can't be like out of normal. I still look normal, but then inside of me, there are some some things that I need to still grow as an artist, at least to make a new perspective, new creative way to see things. And also this is very difficult if it is not trained, yeah. And it is if it is not trained, I can be mixed up. But then I think this is the balance of life that so far I found. And my feet are always on the two sides, on the reality and on the non-reality, and how to make balance out of it. Because in reality I have to be sane, and in non-reality I can be insane. So that's how I work on it. But to me also it's okay okay that we can always have young women to think about their own perspective. Yeah, and in my community, not all riders have to be riders. Not all community members have to be riders. Some of them may choose other preference. It depends on their preference. Yeah, so it's free for them to choose whatever they want to be. But in this little movement in my community, I just want to make sure that they know what they are doing and they love themselves as they have to grow as a mature women in the future. So yeah. Okay, you can always complete my opinion or my insight, Irina and Sein. Okay, now
Yeah, I was just
it's going. Yes, yeah.
yeah, I was just wondering, Sonia, so do you see for yourself a lot of change in recent years in how Balinese women develop? And because both of you, you and also Irina, you both mentioned the aspect of self-love, and there seems to be there seems to be a big strength at the moment of women who love themselves and feel that they want to be independent, which might a little bit clash also with a strong patriarchal rules in society. But yeah, I wonder for you, Sonia, if you see a clash in that, and maybe Irina can say something about if the women themselves also feel a clash in that.
I think we need to make research, especially on the progress of the or improvement. Yeah, but what I can see about the change is very personal. Yeah, very personal change in my community member, for example. uh, uh, I observed, and of course, in the research also involve observation. Though I do not use a particular methodology to observe my community members one by one, but I can feel that they are growing in such a way from silent and passive woman, for example, becomes those who can be critical, at least to see the society, to see themselves as women, and they already realize that the impact of the community in their life is big. Yeah, it's big. So they realize that for those members who are now becomes mothers, for example, they can compare themselves as mother, and those who are not involving in community. They said that the role of art community in themselves as a mother, for example, is very helpful to shape them, to shape their mind as a mother. And for me, this change can be categorized as improvement if I can continuously educate young women before they got married to get the education from community. Maybe they can experience become an actress or a writer. Their perspective is so much different. So for example, the simple thing is that when they talk to their children, they use the style of an actor, like using the intonation, using diction, choices of words to educate their children. So they rehearse like an actor to before they talk to their children. And they also play what is it, as actors sometimes. So for me, this maybe cannot be seen as a revolutionary result. Yeah, as maybe Irina has mentioned previously, we cannot see this as a progressive change, but I think it's very personal change that we can see, at least in the context of my community, that it makes them grow um, as a woman who always learns. Yeah. So yesterday I had a performance with Desi Nurani. Desi Nurani is one of our actors. So before she got married, she already was a member of Komunitas Mahima since very young age. and she admitted that the technique in actor has made her a smart mother. Yeah, so she thought to what is it, to change intonation when she spoke to her baby. So for me, it's very personal change, and I think this is also very important to be continued. And what is it? By the time being, this can make a bigger change if the personal change happens. Things like simple like that. Yeah, maybe Irina can add.
Yeah, I think for like from my methodology, I also looked at the very individual way of seeing change. And I think what I wanted to say is not that we cannot talk about change or progress, is that I do not agree with this idea that women in Bali, for example, are at this point and they have to change and transform themselves on this evolutionary line to become this picture of empowered woman, which is usually dictated from the West. So what I try to say is that I am not the one to evaluate what is this picture, and I just came here to learn what does change mean, or what does power mean for these women here, and try to learn from them. And as you said, Sonia, I also noticed that this ability to always learn, always change, and be flexible is, yeah, it's very present, and it's amazing for me. So I cannot believe that this is not a place of growth and of social change. I just don't put it on this progress line. And some of the women that I've met are trying to rebel against the structures, the patriarchal structures, against traditions. Some of them are not questioning these norms or tradition at all, but they are trying to make their own way and defining themselves in their families and work for their kids in their own ways, while others try to preserve traditions, and many of them, and the cultural norms, while at the same time these cultural norms that somehow they complain about, and they say they stand in my way. But I want to preserve this tradition, and I want to find strategies for a successful life as I see it. So they're trying to seek change while preserving the traditions that are there. And for me, this is amazing. And I think this discussion about change is very subtle, and there are a lot of frictions and tensions that I'm barely trying to think with, and it's a constant learning process for me.
I want to add also that change is not a simple definition to be defined, and it's not a simple term, and there are so many indicators, factors attributing to the term change. And I agree to some women, for example, in my context, they do not question about culture anymore, but they keep working hard, to get financially stable for the family. So I think in this sense, also Balinese women are very special because they are working hard while they are they are doing this for the family, for God, and for society. So always three relationships that the Balinese woman should keep in mind, like trihita karana, yeah, the relationship to God, relationship to human, and relationship to environment. And those three principles have been rooted in our principle of life since a very young age. And sometimes we do not question anymore about why is it so expensive, but just we need to work harder to make everything balanced. And okay, of course, in my perspective as academic also, and a mother as well, I want my daughter, especially like Putih Padi, I want her to know the complexity of life, but then you still have to love yourself and go for what you want in the future. And you have to be confident that you can also change the world the way you want it to be without being controlled by by society or by culture. I need to make sure that my daughter has this perspective, this wider perspective, that you can grow with your own wings. Yes, from very early age. Yeah, I always train
Yeah.
yeah, my daughter to state their own opinion since very early age. So that's why Putih was considered to be very loud in her very young age. Asked so many questions, and also with Kayu, yeah, Kayu also is very critical, and some people say that, oh, yeah, you have so many questions in your mind. Okay, okay. So yeah,
Um,
Sen, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just observing like what you're saying and what Irina is saying also, that I recognize a lot that change, a lot of change starts also with yourself and with self-love, and you cannot really create change from a foundation of hatred or aversion towards things. So I think that is definitely a very important foundation if you want to create change in some way. And I think the aspect of community is sometimes underestimated, from my perspective at least. Of course, Western society is much more focused also on the individual, and with religion that doesn't play such a big role anymore in community. Our religion doesn't play always a big role anymore, and so there is not a natural community, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not to say that we need a religious structure back, but when we talk about this topic, for example, in a Dutch context, we often also say, like, since religion became less important in society, the community feeling also became less important, and it hasn't been replaced by something else. And I think, of course, now you see a lot of spiritual communities. People don't call themselves religious, they call themselves spiritual. People go to yoga, they do meditation. I'm one of them. But the way we do that in the West is actually in a very individualistic way also. So what is, I think, very interesting for me to observe also, since I'm into the topic of decoloniality, is that instead of applying certain things that we think are good for ourselves, so for example, set up a go to yoga and do our self-love and spiritual work, we sometimes forget about certain aspects, or we copy this new things into an existing system of individualism already. And I think what is really a decolonial approach is also to look at how we can apply these things in our life, but also look at the strength of a community. And building from love and also building from community is, I think, the best foundation to create change. And you see that actually all over the world also happening. A lot of examples of change that is created starts from community. A small example, I write a weekly newsletter about inclusive journalism, and yesterday I wrote about the initiative from the United States. It's called the NAP Ministry, and they became really big on Instagram since Black Lives Matter, because they constantly preach to take rest and to let your body just, take rest in our world where the grinding culture of working hard is so important, and we always need to be on, and we always need to be working hard. And this initiative it exists already since 2016, but it really took off after the Black Lives Matter protest, because Black people are tired of racism, tired of always having to convince a dominant white society that racism is really an issue. So the NAP ministry really advocates for taking rest, listening to your body, be kind to yourself. And the woman who started this is actually also coming from an academic background. But before she became so popular through the posts she shared online, she already did the same work in a community in her own town in the US. And she was literally practicing what she's preaching, organizing places for people to take rest, organizing workshops and explain people how to love yourself, how to take a break from the capitalism system that asks us always to be on and work hard. So yeah, I think the combination of women who lead and also dare to invent themselves as women in a new way and not just copy what men do already in our society, not just go for the powerful position, but also think about the feminine side of things. That's one aspect that's, I think, really important, together with building a community and trying to create change in what way, from a foundation of love and community.
Yeah, I agree to your points of view about love, because we don't start with love. How can we share our love? Yeah. What we do this afternoon is also love based activity. I can't imagine if you and Irina don't join me, yeah, because we share the same love, and the fact that women support women also is very important in this context, because what I do in 11 Mothers Project also show that women support women. And I think that is also just a little effort for me to make sure that every woman feels that their voice are heard, and their sadness are embraced in such a way, with a with a community that they know. Yeah. And I also want to add about Western perspective and Eastern perspective. Well, to me, Western gives me like the way of seeing things in objective way, while this Eastern perspective gives me the perspective of subjective and personal. So if you ask a Balinese woman, they usually answer from subjective way of feeling. This is a construct of I think a construct of philosophy of life. Bring it to your own first, or measure from your feeling first. Yeah. But Western perspective in educational aspect, for example, I am English education based researcher. Yeah. I read a lot of theories on how objective Western people see things. This objective means like they measure everything. Like they can measure everything. Seems to me they can measure like feeling as well. They can make everything measurable. But sometimes in Eastern way of seeing things, not everything can be measured like that, and not everything has to be spoken also. And this is what I learned from 11 Mothers Project, that in my script there are so many underlying texts, that there are so many unspoken texts. Yeah. That I don't have to open everything, because some stories are better left unsaid and unspoken, maybe to keep the to keep this the comfort of the woman itself. So yeah, I learned a lot from the project of listening to other women as well. And in this context, I see myself in the middle, in between the Western and Eastern. And I think Irina knows this so much. Maybe Irina can complete my my opinion, because she knows what is it, my opinion. I also one of the participant who is interviewed by Irina in the research, and Irina can reveal what is unrevealed in everyday conversation.
Yeah, I think like yeah, what I would like to add here is that I do not how do I say, I do not like to follow this idea of objectivity in the Western science, and I follow more the new decolonial and also feminist theories that question this objectivity, this ideal of objectivity, and actually admit that life and social life is quite messy, as you said, and not everything should be said, and also the ethics of how we do research or how you do your art and community work. Where do we say this out loud for the sake of science and art, or do we protect, or do we leave the space for these women, in your case, as you said, because this will only hurt them? And what do we do? What do we do with the knowledge that we have, with the stories that we have? So I am also struggling with this. Between this, sometimes I want to speak up, and be angry about everything that I see, and want to represent other women. And also during my research, and I think the biggest work with myself was to step back from this and learn from the women in my fieldwork that it's not always the right thing to do. So I think it's this balance, this mediating role, or actually really creating a context where they can speak and they can express what they want to do with their rights, with their choices, with their I'm still struggling with this.
I agree in some points with stepping back. Sometimes I also step back to some context, because sometimes I feel that I want to change, but I want to change their life, but they don't want their life to be changed. I mean, they love it being in that situation. So okay, sometimes my husband has helped me with another perspective. He would say, you want to reach 1 million miles, while they feel that 2 kilometers is enough for them. So why would you change their point of view? Sometimes I step back as well. In this in this period of time, I want to underline that my role at least is to hear their stories, and I want them to be like to be comfortable with who they are and what they are doing, and with the choices that they have, and to make sure that they are loved, and they are that they have the chance, if they want to make like choices for their own life. So something like that. Sein, I think you want to say something.
I mean, it's really interesting, right? And I think it was interesting that Irina say something about how it is also a process for yourself. And you say it now too, Sonia, you want to do something, but you're actually constantly also looking at yourself, self-reflecting, and trying to understand what is good and what is not. And I recognize that a lot too, especially from journalism, from my own experience of working in a multicultural organization for a long time in my journalism career. and being very confronted with my own blind spots towards racism in the Netherlands. And when you go through a process of that, and I also see it now when I'm studying decoloniality and trying to understand the topic more, it is really about unlearning also. And it means that the way you always did things in your life and the way you're taught to do things really is sometimes completely turned upside down. And yeah, I think finding yourself in the process of applying a decolonial work method is as a serious process as just understanding what it means for other people. So I think that's really interesting. And what you were saying about objectivity, yeah, you both mentioned it also. That's of course also really interesting in journalism. It's kind of a big discussion at the moment. Also, since Black Lives Matter, the topic came more to the surface. And from what I learned in decoloniality, it is really much about letting go of the fact that there is one universal truth for everyone on this planet. So it's really about embracing pluriverse instead of universe, actually. Pluriversal truth, if that's the right terminology. And it doesn't mean that every truth is valued or should be valued in the same way, but just understanding that people do talk from different perspectives and a different position on this planet is really interesting and important. And as journalists, for example, I sometimes give the example of as journalists, we tend to put ourselves outside of society, or outside of this world. We are the objective observers. So I think one first thing that you should do, especially working in journalism, working in media, is to position yourself also on this planet. Where are you positioned? What is your background? Which country do you work? Do you work in West or the East? Do you or live and grow up, I mean. What is your skin color? What is your gender? What is your social class? And it's not that this is not limiting your work as a journalist, but it's actually enriching your work as a journalist. And it's making you much more understand also for yourself what the purpose is in the work that you're doing. So it's a lot about positionality and understanding that there is not one universal truth. And of course, there are facts. So I think it's also good to have a certain common ground in things, but it should be always from, you should be always aware of the position that you're talking from and being open to other truths out there. That's what I wanted to add to what you both were saying.
Okay, we have 10 more minutes to go. Oh my goodness, three of us, yeah. What is it?
We need another hour, so yeah.
Yeah, actually, but unfortunately I cannot because I also need to
you need to go, right? Yeah.
Okay, so maybe one closing statement from you, each of you, and what do you call it? Is a closing or whatever you call it, maybe from Irina first or Stain. I know that this is not yet a conclusion or whatever, but maybe what is it? We need to continue with a second part or the third part. Okay, but at least to this context, maybe Irina first.
Yeah, so I don't think, I'm glad it's not a conclusion. It shows that we still have a lot of work to do and amazing things to discover and create together and separately, of course. And I think I will, and thank you for this opportunity. So I'm really, really happy it's not a conclusion. So I like, building on what Zana had said earlier about this positionalities and who we are in the world, what I noticed in it's also the importance of female role models. And I think you and your community, Sonia, is also providing this. And I saw how young women that I met really look up to other women in Bali and also in Indonesia, that they see independent and they see strong, that they are strong and that they love themselves. But I would not generalize this. So I think that for me, like the rule is not to portray this in my research, to portray these women that I have met as a monolithic group, as they are the Balinese women who are like this and like this, but rather accept and highlight how they adopt one or another definition of womanhood, of themselves, their own strategies, their small techniques that they develop and they learn from other women. And I like to say that the way they do their banten, like this offerings and complex offerings, which they all looks the same somehow, but they are, each of them use different flowers, add a different fruit, choose another material, or maybe a small little color. And I would say that this is the art of banten is translated to the art of self-making, of self-crafting, and how these women define themselves in the world. And this artistry is very diverse. And I would choose to look at this and not to talk about general Balinese women, but show the beauty in this very specific and individual way of defining themselves.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, thank you, Irina. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. So interesting, all the things that Irina is mentioning. I think with the crafting and the creativity, it makes me immediately think of why people come to Bali, you know, as tourists. And I've been here now for a while, and I see that all the people, all the tourists who come here, or the expats who stay longer, they really love the creativity in the islands. And I also see that a lot of things from the West are copied to the islands, activities you can do, workshops you can do, which is also fine, of course. I mean, we live in a rich world, but it would be lovely to see more of the Balinese women also, how to say, or let's say how to see the tourists or the expats learn from the creativity of and the strength of Balinese women. Role models also really important and good point. I think for my closing statement, it's just it's not a closing statement like Irina is saying. It's a lifelong journey, and it's all the time reminding myself to keep listening and learning from what I'm observing. And like I said before, awareness is great, but it's really, the magic lies really in the action and the praxis. And that's also something that I remind myself often. And yeah, I think this webinar is maybe one example of praxis in opening a discussion. Thank you, Sonia.
Yeah, thank you so much, Irina and Sane, for your wonderful insights and perspective. I do love the idea that we are not concluding this conversation. Instead, we think this is just a starting point of our work, future works together that still needs a lot of things to do together. And I believe that Komunitas Mahima cannot work this alone. I need to have helping hands from other other women, other community, other friends also who support this to be bigger and bigger progress in the future. So thank you very much for this wonderful and fruitful discussion. And for those who are listening on YouTube, thank you very much. And I hope that we can see you again soon, because we still have other programs in Mahima. We have theater performance in the 30th of March. And then we also have workshops still, and we still have one panel discussion also at the end of the March. Okay, take a deep breath now. Thank you, and see you again and in the near future. And keep yourself healthy. Yeah, that's very important. Keep your health okay. Saint Irina and all of you who are listening to Mahima right now. And bye now. Thank you. See you again.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, you can leave now.